Hello, 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 friends. Nicholas here with DIVO TED Talks, where we take ancient wisdom and practices through a modern lens and experience to help you and those you love in suffering in your personal and greater worlds alike. And on this last day of July, well, I'm recording it beforehand, but it's not too far out from where I'm sitting right now. You know, I'm reflecting on how July has always been a strange month for me. Like, this time of year always weighs on me in different ways. And I think I might have even done a podcast last year that said the same thing. And June is this like epic and fun and all this awesomeness. And then July is this like weird shotgun scatter of an experience. And this year I'm more prepared because last year I was just hanging on by my skin of my teeth. But this year I knew kind of what to expect, and so it hasn't been as harsh or debilitating. But there are other levels in my life that I've had to deal with as well. Like, I still have to run a household, and I still have animals to take care of, and I still have to clean, and I still have to do my laundry, and I still have to do all of these things. And so one thing that I have taken from the studio and what I've learned here is getting everything set so that I can walk in and just get it done quickly. And so I've always used my house as my comfort, as like a nest and like a cave where I can just go into and retreat if I want to, periodically inviting people in. But I haven't invited people in a while because I haven't organized it and or gotten it to a standard that I would like, but also because I don't really have time because I'm working all the time, which in and of itself is something that I'm working on too. Um, you know, I mentioned in the last episode, I do believe that everything is happening exactly as it's supposed to, so all of the pieces can get into the right order to have the right things happen at the right time with the right people and for the right reasons. And that's it. So I can relax back and I can accept myself for who I am in this moment, for the lessons that I'm going to learn later because of whatever comes of who I am being now, so that I can show up in the world the next time for others and or myself to better serve, to better lift up, whatever. And so there's less harshness, there's less criticism, there's less uh, denigration of what is happening under some presumption that there's a perfect way to do it, and rather accepting that I am not the one moving all the strings, and yet I am influencing the strings based on how I show up. I'm not pulling them. They're going to happen the way they're going to happen, but where I'm at in the mix is going to be different depending on how I show up. And the more calm, collected, and peaceful I am, the better the experience is probably going to be, regardless of what happens, right? Have you ever met somebody who had a tragedy happen and they have a good attitude? And we're not just talking about them like, patently denying what happened, but rather like just they get it that there's some purpose. Perhaps they have it tied to faith, perhaps they have it tied to something else, but it's just beautiful to watch because you're like, oh, I get it, right? If you are in a good spot mentally, spiritually, and physically, you're going to be able to receive the outcomes of life in a way that you can hold your head high rather than being driven to your knees. And that's what a lot of the teachings talk about. I think people twist them a little bit, but that's also based on the fact that you can only understand something through you. And so if they have had life experiences and hold beliefs that put them at a particular set point, they're going to interpret the way life happens or the way life is supposed to happen in their way. And this is hard for me because I understand that, but then in some cases I know that I should not be around somebody, or I should avoid them, or I need to cut off contact with them. I, in particular, have had a life of beginnings and endings, just in this succession. And then when I looked at my astrology, it shows that that was going to happen. But I had to live all these experiences of endings and beginnings and rising like a phoenix out of the ashes of everything that has ever burned down. And I wouldn't have understood it in the context of this is my life path, having not lived it all this time before finding out that aspect of the astrology. And so, how do we use yoga and Ayurveda or just wisdom to get to that place where life happens and we're not beat down, burnout, um, demoralized, and destroyed by it. That was a lot of alliteration. I like it. The answer is you meditate so that you are clearing yourself of all the things that you are not, so that there's space for all the things that you are. We are not naturally mean, nasty, or terrible people. We as humans are not that. It is learned and it is a survival skill in many ways, right? Now, who somebody learned it from or in what context, I don't know. But there's a lot of things that happen in life that we aren't really privy to, especially as it pertains to other people. And so cutting people slack may be hard, but it's easier to do when you are rested, when you are meditated, and when you are exercising regularly, because there is functional movement in all the systems, mind, body, and spirit. And then knowing that you're not always going to be perfect with it, not holding judgment, not harboring contempt for yourself because you didn't do it right this time, but rather using each experience as a data point for you to grow, right? Sometimes we look at lessons as these negative things, right? Because they didn't turn out the way we thought they should. And yet, if we didn't learn what we're learning now, and then we are able to do what we wanted to do, then was this wrong? Was this lesson bad? Or was it just instructive? Right? We live in a very market and financially driven world. And that dictates survival and your ability to have the space to even contemplate anything like this. And so if you're starving, all you're worried about is feeding yourself, right? And so there are some luxuries that allow us to have deeper thoughts about life and ourselves. And so yoga and Ayurveda doesn't have to be something that you pay for somewhere else. And yet I highly recommend it in a group and in the right community because it's helpful, because it allows you to share the nervous system and it allows you to share the, collaborative wisdom, or not even collaborative wisdom, but the accumulated wisdom collaboratively in the group. And so recognizing that everything happens exactly as it's meant to happen, and you are not making it happen. You are setting yourself up to be in a resonance or a space that you can easily navigate the movings of the strings so that you get where you want to go. And that as you learn how to attune and or get into that better space more frequently, and when I say better space, I mean feeling good, being in awareness, being present with yourself. I'm not talking about a superior om state, right? That's what a lot of yoga culture is. If only you do this, you'll be perfect. And if you do the mudra and you do the breathing, and I believe in all of these and I love all of these. But if you don't get your mind right first, there's no way you can sit down and do them, because you can do these practices and get some benefit. But if you're in a bad mental space or a bad spiritual space, shit ain't going to work for very long. And it'll become very obvious very quickly. And so there is a whole aspect of Ayurveda that is dedicated specifically to psychology. And I love reading books on yoga and psychology or Ayurveda and psychology, because it's just, it makes sense to me. And that's why I was drawn to it in the first place. But I had to have all of the crazy life experiences up until this point to get me to humble myself, to reach out to get well, to humble myself and, study things so that I can heal, that I can change, that I can become more, that I can show up for people. And I'm glad, but man, it was really hard getting through some of the things. And in fact, I'm going through emotional stuff right now. I told you, July has always been hard for me, and I don't know why. And if I'm going to have some of my spin outs, it's usually in October, December, and July. And I am trying to be present for it. I am trying to not just have compassion for myself, but love myself through the things that I'm doing, understanding that it is purposeful, whether I understand the purpose currently or not. right? And the only purpose for this podcast and the way I share the things is for me and you and all you love to be well and be free.